Hey, John, I've got the stream enabled. Well, it's starting to be. Sometimes it takes a little while.
Okay.
Oh, you know, Virginia's not happy here, so I'll be doing all the roll now. You know?
All right, Tara, we're good.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I don't know that.
What are you asking about?
Jane, I'm not sure if you I read it, I didn't respond to it, but not.
Oh, okay.
Jane, who are you inquiring about? Which picture?
Picture.
Looks like you're trying to identify people.
Oh, yes, yeah.
The one in the center top is our auditor.
That's why I couldn't recognize him.
I saw you looking, so I figured I'd just let you know.
Thank you, I very appreciate that.
Yeah, he will be doing a brief presentation.
Okay.
A review,
Right.
like they do it every year.
Yeah, I know, it's an annual event. But you guys haven't, you didn't just kind of share it.
Yeah, I was gonna tell you something, I'll tell you after the meeting, so you're.
Put it in your hands.
If I don't get reelected, it doesn't matter. Which is what I was gonna tell you. Are we on?
Is your mic? So when you put the switch on, right?
Yeah, I know, but I don't know. Are we on public TV?
Right now, you see how it says the black number. When this starts recording and everything else, it's
Oh,
goes to a red dot.
Oh, okay.
That's when we're recording.
Yeah.
So when that goes to a red dot.
Got it. Because I didn't really want to say that out loud.
All right.
I think that John's enabled recording for the room, though I don't think they're unmuted quite yet. I'm going to go ahead and start streaming to YouTube and recording here.
Okay.
And then I'll check with John about the audio. I think he's just switched over to a different panel.
All right. I'm copying down a motion that's being added, so just give me a second.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can you hear me? All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the Borough of Morrisville Borough Council meeting for Monday, April 19th, 2021. Can we please rise when you can and for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
Can you hear me?
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Can we have a roll call, please? Hello? Terry, are you still here?
I am, and I now see audio from the room.
But Virginia's usually downstairs.
Virginia is went home early sick, so
Oh.
Micah.
Yeah, I'm on a town meeting panel. I've been on either one, so I just want to make sure I full meeting. I'm on a full meeting panel now. That I can go to town when I go back to town. Can you hear me?
Micah, can you hear me?
And it's still doing this. How about now? You got it? Can you hear me talking?
I can hear you.
Hello?
Yep.
Okay, so we were having issues with the room audio, but it seems to be sorted out now. So, Micah, they're calling for a roll call.
I think we're still having problems with the audio with the room.
Radio was just working. 1 second.
Terry, I believe that was John Later we heard. So whatever he spoke into, we could hear, but we haven't heard Mike yet.
I'm not even sure they can hear us.
Yeah, correct. I was talking to John, and he seemed to have sorted it out, but for some reason, it's not working again.
Terry?
Yeah, John, we can hear you, but we can't seem to hear Micah or anyone else in the room. So whatever you're talking into, John, is working, but I'm not sure anything else is.
One, two.
John, we can hear you.
Everybody else is talking. Okay, all right. But they can't hear. Can they talk into the room?
I mean,
Council?
All right, sorry about
All right, it's a little after 7, so let's get the meeting started tonight. We'll start with the roll call. Oh, John said, okay. Okay, let's start from the beginning. Let's have a moment of silence, please.
We already did that. We did that in the Pledge of Allegiance, so we just need a roll call.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, good evening. We'll start with the roll call. Mayor Ravella. Mr. Bowers.
Here.
Mr. Bowers.
They can't hear us.
Present.
Ms. Halahol.
Here.
Mr. Nickel.
Here. Present.
I guess we're not hearing anybody. Mr. Parker.
Here.
Mr. Paul.
here.
Mr. Robinson.
Here.
Nice. Ms. Sherlock.
Here.
Mr. Yeager.
Here.
Let's go back to the beginning. Mr. Bowers.
Here.
Mr. Nickel.
Here.
Mr. Parker.
Here.
Mr. Paul.
Here.
All right. Do we have the solicitors?
We're here. Yeah, Randy Flager and Scott Holber are both here.
All right, I'm here. And, all right. So our first presentation is going to be from our auditors, Barbara Thornton and Company. So I'm going to hand you over to Mr. Sawyer.
Thanks, Mike. Can everybody hear me okay?
I can.
I can, yes.
Yes.
Am I going to be able to share my screen, or can somebody pull up the presentation I had?
Mr. Sawyer, you should be able to share your screen now. I've added you as a co-host.
Perfect. Everybody see the Morrisville Borough audit results slide there?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Okay, all right. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to give you a quick overview and walk you through the audit results. We'll kind of give you a brief feeling for what an audit entails. So with that, we're going to look at the summary of the audit results. We're going to take a look at the audit timeline, our audit approach, areas of emphasis, the results being the opinion we issued, a couple other matters, and then I have some quick financial result charts to show you comparing 2020 compared to 2019. As far as the audit timeline goes, we did perform the audit on site and downstairs in the little conference room there. Our field work was performed between March 1st and March 12th. Then after that, it goes through our quality control levels of review, and then we issued the final report. We did send over a draft report of the DCD, or the annual audit and financial report, to management for their review and approval. And I can also tell you that the DCD report has been electronically filed with the state. As far as our audit approach goes, we design our audit procedures based on areas of what we consider to be greater audit risk. And that includes, but is not limited to, inquiries of management, employees, as well as talking to a council member. We review minutes and various agreements entered into during the year. We'll look at documentation of your internal control procedures, making sure that your procedures related to cash receipts and cash disbursements and payroll are operating effectively. We'll also look at do an analytical review of your activities and various account balances. And then, of course, we'll also do substantive testing or testing of details on your key activities. Once we've designed our audit, some of the areas that we look at your revenue for any improper revenue recognition, and in order to make sure that revenue is fairly stated in your financial statements, we'll do third-party confirmations and review of various supporting documentations, agreements, etc. We'll do third-party confirmation of your cash accounts and debt balances, just to make sure that everything there is in agreement with those third parties. We place a focus on major vendor payments, looking at what some of the major vendors of the borough are, and looking at the supporting documentation to make sure that payments to them are for valid borough expenditures. We also put a focus on capital outlay expenditures. There's a statement of capital expenditures as part of the DCD report, so we'll look at items that get reported on that schedule. And then, of course, we'll also pay attention to and focus on payroll expenditures, because payroll and benefits, obviously, the #1 expenditure for the borough. And then we'll also look at some selections of other transactions on a random basis as we're going through the audit. The actual audit results themselves, I'm glad to tell you that we issued an unmodified or clean opinion on the DCD report in accordance with the regulatory basis of accounting. And then we also issued a management recommendation letter related to the bank reconciliations. Micah has that, and we've made some progress on there. And obviously this past year has been quite a challenge for the borough for obviously a number of reasons with COVID. And of course, recently the passing of Scott Mitchell. So we look for that to be fully taken care of in the upcoming year. As far as just touching on a couple other quick matters, just to let you know that management was helpful and forthcoming throughout the audit, providing us with everything that we had requested. We did assist with the preparation of certain journal entries at the year end. This is something that the borough has asked us to do as part of the audit in previous years, and we're glad to help them just get a couple of things straight at the end of the year. And since we do help with some of those journal entries, there were no waived audit adjustments. Everything has been recorded and included in the books and records of the borough. And then just to let you know, we are available year-round for any questions that you may have, or if there's anything that comes up in accounting-wise that the borough needs assistance to, feel free to give us a call. Looking at your financial results, a couple of charts for you. We're going to look at your year-end cash balances, fund balances, your major and total revenues, and major and total expenditures. And then we also have a slide letting you look at the library fund results. And of course, we also have we issued the audit for the library fund as well. So looking at your cash balances, your general fund went from $740,000 down to $622,000. Your special revenue funds had $417,000 the year before. They're down to $339,000. Capital projects went from $243,000 down to $231,000. The debt service went from $65,000 down to $35,000. And then your escrow funds, which is not really money that the town has, but you do have some accounts related to developers, etc., that deposit money on hand. They went from $51,000 down to $35,000. So overall, total cash went from $1.5 million down to about $1.3 million in 2020. Looking at your fund balances, kind of also see some of the same correlation there as your cash balances went down. Obviously, the fund balance went down. In general fund, 666,000 to 556,000. Special revenue funds total had a deficit last year of 27,000. They now have a deficit of 68. Capital projects down from 243 to 231. Debt service again down from 65 to 35, and overall your fund balance is down from 947 to 754. We take a look at your major and total revenues. Real estate taxes fairly even, down a little bit from 2.9 to about 2.84. Your intergovernmental revenues, which includes grant income, 1.5 to 1.4. Charges for services also down just a little bit from 1.2 to just under 1.2. And total revenues, 6.4 in 2019 to 6.3 in 2020. Taking a look at your major and total expenditures. In general government, you actually went down here from 909 to 816,000. Public safety went up a little bit from 2.437 to 2.474 million. Public works down from 2.19 to 2.148. Culture and rec had a big dip, obviously because of some of the park expenditures last year, 891,000 down to 530. Debt service right about on target, 129 to 131. That's really just the scheduled debt payments on the loan. And then benefits and insurance as a category, about the same at about 350,000 per year. So overall, your total expenditures went from 6.9 down to 6.5 million. Then we have the library fund. So you can see here the library fund, the assets went from 37,000 down to 6. That really has to do with the allocation of cash that's attributed to the library. Your liabilities and deferred inflows rose a little bit from 15,000 to 30,000. And the fund balance went from 22 down to a deficit of 24. Revenues went from 227, they actually went up to 233. That had a lot to do with the state aid grant that comes in. And your expenditures went from 242 up to 274. And that was really a large part just due to salaries and benefits. So overall, that is a kind of quick and synopsis of the annual audit and financial report, or DCD, of the town, or excuse me, the borough, as well as the library fund. So I will open it up to any questions from the council.
Anyone?
This is Justin. I just have one question. Back during the beginning, you said your methods for who you interviewed, it said somebody from Borough Council. Is that just in general, or did you actually interview somebody from our council?
We would have, see, I have with me Alex Frank, who is our lead auditor on the firm. Alex, who did you talk to on the borough? Do you remember?
Alex, you're still muted.
You think I have this figured out by now, a year into Zoom? Off the top of my head, no, I don't remember. I could find it, but I had to load it up and everything. So, but I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
Sorry, it's not that important to look it up. I was just curious.
Okay. Yeah, okay. But we do actually talk to somebody. Usually we try to have them come out on site. We've been doing it a lot by phone recently, obviously because of COVID.
Anyone else? Feel free to ask. No other questions?
I said I would be curious, since Justin asked the question. Maybe the person would tell us. No?
Not me.
No?
Wasn't I.
Wasn't I. So, Anyway,
Wasn't me.
Lead the prior year, so I don't know who it was this year.
Wasn't me.
Wasn't
Oh.
me either.
okay.
I
Maybe it
have,
was someone.
I have a real quick question for you, Tim. In the beginning, you said recommendations on bank reconciliations.
Yes.
Can you touch on that? Like, what are the recommendations on bank reconciliations?
Sure. We had talked, and it was one of the things last year that we had talked with Micah and Scott about, and they actually had us. Micah does the bank reconciliations for all the accounts, and when he first came on, obviously there was some catch up, and also some of the bank reconciliations they were getting done, but were taking some time to be done. Like they were lagging a month or two or so from when the month closed to the bank reconciliation got done. So when we brought that up and they had gone through the process and Mike and Scott had talked last year, they wanted us to get involved and had asked us if we would come in on a quarterly basis and look at the bank reconciliations that had been done, and just make sure that everything seemed okay with the bank recs for the borough. So we started doing that, and then obviously with COVID, and then at the end, more recently as you get into the latter quarter of 2020, when Scott took ill and all, those reconciliations also did get done, but then they started to lack, obviously, with the extra work that Micah had taken on. So, and all the process has gotten better over the last year, and we look for the timing, I guess, of the reconciliations to be done a little bit quicker, hopefully in the month. And that way, it just helps the borough if there's any kind of items that come across, that need any looking into, or if there's some kind of discrepancy that comes through the bank, you would see. We haven't seen anything like that so far. I can tell you one of my borough clients had a instance where they did have a outside fraud. Somebody got a hold of their bank routing number and tried to process some checks through there, but they were able to catch it through the reconciliation process, alerted the bank, and obviously didn't lose any funds over it. So it's just, it's kind of the age that we're living in now with everything being done electronically, just to try to make sure that your reconciliations are done as quickly as possible, and then can be reviewed by somebody, if not at the borough, then continued by us, just to kind of take a quick look and make sure that everything is being captured correctly.
Okay, so the recommendations were basically bank reconciliation 101 then.
Basically, yes. Nothing too exciting, and like I said, you made some steps in the right direction. Obviously, with everything that went on at the borough in the first quarter of 2021, which you're probably a little bit behind. Otherwise, we probably would have cleared the entire recommendation as opposed to kind of keeping it as a hangover from the year before.
And if I can add on real quick, another one of the suggestions from the auditor was to have another set of eyes on them besides myself. And that's when we engaged Barbara Kane to come in and look at them quarterly, which is budgeted for. Thanks.
Mr. Parker, I have a question.
Go ahead, ma'am.
This is regarding, it's the second page of the letter that your auditor's report. It talks about the adverse opinion on accounting principles, and it talks about how it's not presented fairly when you refer to the paragraph before it. And does this all have to do with the DCED? It seems to have some play in here. Is that, if I remember correctly, even from last year? Is that correct? And Mike's shaking his head. So.
Yeah,
I can explain that. So
for many years, that's always been on the audit from any time I can remember, because there is conflicting rules between accounting principles and the DCED.
Right, and you just have to make the statement that yours are different, right? I guess.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. What happens is the adverse opinion comes because what they consider generally accepted accounting principles would be what they would consider full accrual statements, which would mean that the borough would have to issue full-blown statements, including disclosures, and a lot of that would also include, you'd have to have a fixed asset listing and depreciate your fixed assets and record all your debt, etc. And it also has to do with when you use the DCD statements for your continuing disclosure with your debt, in this case where you have the loan, they get a copy of the statements. So we're forced by our standards just to make sure that, hey, this report is not in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles or the full accrual basis statements. But you get the clean opinion on the DCD regulatory basis because they allow it as part of their prescribed form.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
This is Justin. I just have another furtherance on that question. Tim, did governments in general follow GAAP, or is it more geared towards private business and public business?
It depends on the government and the size. I would say a lot of the boroughs and townships in Pennsylvania just do the regulatory basis or the DCD report, like the borough of Morrisville does. A lot of your governments, if you consider governmental entities as being like school districts or the larger municipalities, such as like the cities, a lot of them will do full-blown, governmental accounting standards, financial statements, because they are issuing bonds. So when they do the bond issues and all that, they need those financial statements.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, if anybody does have any questions, please let Micah know, and he can get a hold of us, and we'll get you an answer.
Thank you.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen. You should have it back.
All right, before we move into public comment, I'd like the public to know that there was an executive session at 6:30 this evening before our public meeting, and that was for personnel. And we will be having one after the end of this meeting, also for personnel. We will not be coming back. There'll be no voting. And we have an addition to the agenda, which is 9H, which is a motion to provide a stipend as additional compensation for additional duties in absence of a borough manager to Micah Heinz in the amount of $392 a week, and Virginia Cyphers in the amount of $272 per week. This stipend will be retroactive to the date that council confirmed Micah Heinz as acting borough manager. So that's an addition to the motion as 9H, to the action items as 9H.
Mr. Parker, I think he added February 16th to the motion. Is that right?
I didn't see that in what he wrote, so maybe.
That was the date that it would be retroactive to.
All right, so then we'll change it from retroactive to the date to retroactive to February 16th, 2021.
That's correct.
When council confirmed Micah Heinz as acting borough manager. All right.
Go ahead. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you can go.
I was going. I would like to know if, I don't know if this is the proper timing, but I just thought of this. I'd like to. Could we add a motion to agree to contract David Wolcom of the Minor Center in the search for borough manager, not to exceed $6,000 plus travel expenses? Or do we wait to do that later? But I mean, then the public wouldn't be able to talk on it.
Right. What was your, can you read your motion again?
Well, I kind of, motion to agree to a contract with David Woolgum of the Minor Center in the search for a borough manager, not to exceed $6,000 plus travel expenses. And that's the figure he gave us in his proposal. So, I don't know. Nobody's jumping on it.
Well, I mean, you asked to add it, so we can add it. So it's a motion to agree to a contract with Michael, what was the last name?
David
sorry.
Woolgum, W-O-L-G-O-M.
W-O-L-G.
Don't you need a second to add a motion?
No.
No?
She's making an action item. When you get to the motion, you need a second.
Minor Institute?
It's M-E-Y-N-E-R Center, 2 words.
Center, okay. Plus travel. All right. Let me see if I got this right, Nancy. Motion to agree to contract David Woolgum of the Minor Center to conduct
search
for a borough manager, candidate?
That's up to you.
Well, I would just say that to make it easier for everyone, he sent us a letter, Mr. Parker, he sent a letter on March the 5th, 2021. So you could just say per his proposal of March 5th, 2021, to conduct a search for a borough manager.
What was the date? March what?
March 5th, 2021.
Okay. All right, a motion to agree to contract David Woolgum to conduct a search for borough manager pursuant to his proposal dated March 5th, 2021. Is that good?
Sounds good.
Okay. That will be 9I. So, unless anybody else has anything else. All right. We're going to move into public comment. Harry, can you handle that?
Sure.
Hey, Terry, I have 2 people that signed in here before we go to the people on the Zoom meeting.
All right, so let's do the people at Borough Hall first.
Okay, the first we have Courtney Liu.
Good evening. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to, I'm Courtney Liu at 327 Hillside Avenue. I just wanted to share about our next Riverwalk cleanup. It will be on Saturday, May 1st from 10 to 11 a.m. It's 1 hour only, so it's really easy and doable on a Saturday. Saturday, May 1st, 10 to 11. All supplies are provided, gloves, trash bags. You just have to show up. The rain date is Saturday, May 8th. Again, from 10 to 11 a.m., but we're hoping for Saturday, May 1st. I am just asking always, I'm going to ask the council to keep in mind permanent trash cans. I'm always going to ask for that just because people tend to litter again when there aren't any trash cans up there. And I also wanted to say that this is faith-based. So that's it. Saturday, May 1st, Riverwalk cleanup, and I hope people come out. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Noel Spurry.
Good evening, Council. Noel Sperry, 531 Prospect Avenue, Morrisville, PA. Just going to put out some important dates that are coming up over the next month. It just seems like a lot of stuff is going to be happening and people should kind of know about it and hopefully they remember. Start with April 21st. Administrative Professionals Day, so do something nice for your administrative professional. It's April 22nd, Earth Day. Do something nice for Mother Earth. May 9th, Mother's Day. Do something nice for your mom. May 15th is Peace Officers Memorial Day. Please take some time to thank our officers for keeping us safe and remember all of those that have given their lives in the line of duty. May 17th, your individual taxes are due. This Sunday, April 25th, the Friends of Morrisville Dog Park is having a dog wash fundraiser. I'm actually going to let Justin probably fill in the details, but you know, this is to support our award-winning dog park. I'll be volunteering all day, so hopefully I'll see some people out there. And finally, I want to say thank you to Wayne Stamps for putting on the car show at the Morrisville Senior Center. There was about 60 cars, or over 60 cars. There were people coming and going all day. It was a great day for an event. It was a little overcast, but cool, but still very nice. They raised over $1,400 for the senior center. So again, I want to say thank you to Wayne Stamps and his group that put that on. And that's about it.
Yeah, I heard that was a great car show.
It was. There's some really, really cool cars too. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Terry, who do we have on Zoom?
Just so everybody knows, if you could raise your hand in Zoom with the raise hand feature. Looks like we have Deborah Colgan again. Deborah, if you could unmute yourself. There you are.
Good evening. Deborah Colgan, 120 West Hendrickson Avenue. It's my hope that tonight the public will hear what activities are ongoing related to the Williamson Park development proposal. We've all observed the surveyors in the park and we see the paint marks all over, so the borough must be aware. While professional fees are covered by Morrisville Select's escrow, borough administration staff time is not. And so as taxpayers, I think it's only right that we should know what they're working on. Now that the comprehensive plan has been approved, let's use its principles to guide appropriate revitalization in the borough. Smart development is at its core environmentally responsible, resilient, and forward-thinking. Smart development does not repeat the same mistakes of the past. It adjusts with newfound knowledge. We know now that climate change is real, that building in floodplains is foolish, that green infrastructure is essential, and old-fashioned cookie-cutter business models are not how to address our future needs. The opportunity lies here with you now. Study smart development strategies. They show how we can be good stewards of our land as well as prosper. Use what we have, what makes us unique. Build on our strengths. That's the path to follow. That means keeping focus on our actual real downtown for commercial development opportunities. While the borough can't improve private property, it can improve what it owns. So invest in our parks across Morrisville. A wide variety of quality green spaces will attract revitalization we desire. It brings people to town, it attracts businesses, raises property values, reduces crime, and enhances our historical and cultural offerings. A great park system is less expensive to create and maintain. It offers much less risk during flooding. It's accessible to all, and it can adapt with community needs. We have the incredible resources like the Delaware River in our front yard and a state park running through town. The synergy that can be created with all of our resources is profound. Look across the river to Trenton. It's well known among smart planners that limiting public access to the river with buildings and parking lots was a huge mistake that they really can't correct. Learn from that. Understand that Morrisville residents are thoughtful and aware. We consider the future with sustainability in mind, and we expect that as our elected leaders, you will do the same. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Deborah. I don't see anyone else in Zoom with the, oh, hold up, spoke too soon. Looks like someone is on as Pennsbury Racket Club. If you'd like to unmute yourself.
Yep.
Hello?
Yes. Name and address, please, for the record.
Yeah, good evening, council. My name is Brad Warner. We're at 375 West Trenton Avenue in Morrisville, the Pennsbury Racket and Athletic Club.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
I think we need the residents, though, not the business, right?
Okay, so I'm at 58 Sutphin Pines in Yardley, PA.
Randy, excuse us just 1 second. Randy.
Yes.
The person is not a borough resident. Is that an issue or no?
Only you can make. I mean, you don't have to. You have to listen to your borough residents. He's a business owner, perhaps. I don't in town. You can if you wish, of course.
Mr. Parker, we received a
yes,
a proposal from them, so I think it would behoove us to listen to what they have to say.
Anyone else on council object?
No, I think they should speak.
No, I didn't have an objection. Just wanted to verify the residents.
No problem, sir. I figured let's ask it now. So, all right, I don't hear any objection. Go ahead, sir. You can continue.
Okay, great. Thank you. So along the lines of what Deborah was saying before, you have 3 tennis courts over by the river at the park, which we were interested in trying to create tennis programs over there during the summer months. And we were hoping to, revitalize the tennis program over there. It seems like it's, I've driven by there many, many times over the years. We've owned the Pennsbury Racket Club for 17 years, and it looks like it's underutilized. And we'd like to even put some money into it to make it a little bit nicer and to make it a place that people would want to come to learn how to play tennis. And we could bring our professional staff and our skills out there and turn it into a real professional program.
Mr. Parker, can I comment?
Real quickly.
Okay. Just for people's knowledge, that we did have the Trenton tennis. I don't know the whole professional name, but a few years back they did a summer program down there with students, and it was very successful. And I like the idea that we could use it again.
I like the idea as well. I don't know, do we have to add a motion to approve that, or do we have to have a conversation amongst council?
I'd like to have more information about whether or not there's going to be a cost charge to those participants and what it might be, and council would need to decide whether or not there would be a usage fee for using the facilities and insurance requirements. So I think a motion tonight might be premature.
I agree.
We do have insurance, and we could, we could use our insurance over there, not a problem. We also run the tennis program at Cobblestone Creek Country Club in Lawrenceville, New Jersey. So we were looking to do something a little bit closer to home. And in terms of a fee, the courts that are currently out there need some work, and we would be happy to have our guys go out there and do some work to make the courts, perhaps a little safer and a little more playable. At no expense to you, at our expense.
I have a question, Ted. How soon? Because if this is a summer program, it's probably going to have to get moving, and I would hate to see us drag our feet and not even get it up off the ground. When were you looking at starting this?
As soon as possible.
Okay.
So can we?
If you gave us the go-ahead, we would go ahead and start going into motion and try and get things out there and get the community excited about it and find ways to reach out to people in the area to get them playing tennis.
If I may, Ted.
Go ahead, sir.
All right, just to chime in real quick, I love the idea, sir. Thank you for bringing this to us. However, I think we need to put the brakes on for a quick second, guys. Everybody wants to jump in and agree to this. We need an MOU. We need to talk to our attorneys. We need to make sure that we do it the right way. Jumping into it is fun, but it's not necessarily responsible. I think we need to have a discussion, maybe put it on next month. I don't think, and tell me if I'm wrong, sir, that would put you in any kind of bad spot if this was talked about next month, correct?
Well, it'd be difficult for us to get this probably going as strong as we'd like, and also to get the courts fixed, because we'd have to work something out with the person who does our courts. To fix the courts up a little bit would be a difficult thing as well. So it would require some orchestration to make that happen. I don't know if another month, that would be in May. You'd really only have June, July, and then maybe the middle of August you'd be finishing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I appreciate your insights on that. For me, though, guys, I know where I'm going with this, but I think we need to have it looked at. We need an MOU. We need an agreement with any organization that we're going to be long-term letting anyone use property. I think that's only fair to Morrisville Little League, who has a contract and an MOU, that we don't parse out any additional places and not have the same expectations that we have for anyone using the park for stuff like this.
Right. I mean, if we had knowledge of this earlier and had the opportunity to vet everything and make sure that all our I's are dotted and T's are crossed, that I'd feel more comfortable with it. And I love the idea, and I think we need to vote on this. That have our solicitor reach out to you and work out something more concrete that we can actually view at before the next meeting, and then vote on it in May. I know it might push you back a little bit, but I don't feel comfortable being rushed into something with just nothing but a proposal email.
I agree. Tonight is not the night, but may I suggest that we get the file that we used before, which had those all those particulars and the MMO and so forth and so on. So you're not starting from scratch.
Right. If the administration can dig that up,
sure, it's not that old.
Okay. And then get that to Randy so they have a framework to look at and get a better idea of what, and then maybe give that to council in our Friday packet so that we can look at it and flesh it out a little bit. But I greatly appreciate, you being interested in using our tennis courts, but I think we need a little bit more time just to, it's not a no. I actually think, I think it's a good thing. And I think we'll have a favorable number of members, council, in favor of it, but I just think there's too many moving parts to put it on the agenda for tonight. But it's definitely something we're interested in doing with you.
Okay, is it okay if I ask a few questions? I'll keep it.
Can I just for record, this is public comment. You have a few minutes to make public comment. This is not a negotiation session.
Right.
No, so, I wasn't trying to negotiate.
No, what I'm saying is that it's not, you have a right to speak uninterrupted for your amount of time. And you can make any statement you want. Council's allowed you to do that, but it's not a question and answer period.
Right.
That's for subsequently if we can.
Right. I mean, if you could reach out to the administration, to our acting borough manager, and they'll put you in touch. They can communicate with you and the borough solicitor, and you can ask any questions you'd like of them. And if it's anything for council, they'll forward it to us.
Not a problem. Thank you for
your time. We're available. We're not hiding from you. So you call our office. We're there.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Looks like next we have a Jim O'Brien. If you could unmute yourself, Jim.
Good evening, everybody. This is Jim O'Brien with Morrisville Little League. I'm a resident of Yardley Borough, or more Lower Makefield Township, Pennsbury School District. And just wanted to
just give your address for the record, please.
1000 University Drive, Yardley, PA 19067. Just wanted to meet with everyone tonight and just go over some of the outstanding items. Make sure you guys had received everything that I had sent across. The schedules had just been submitted to Borough Council, so you guys should have that full set of schedules for all our. We were waiting on 21 for interleague play. Certificate was submitted, so that paperwork is in, and I can talk at a high level about the numbers of registered players as well as which of those Morrisville Borough residents. We'll have the full list to you guys tonight. Our agent had a little bit of a delay, difficulties. He's currently coaching a game, so right after he gets wrapped up with that, we should have that sent your way. We did not have an official opening day that we normally do as a result of COVID. As you guys, it's still hanging over everything. So we're optimistic that we may be able to do something opening day light later in the year. But right now we're just monitoring the COVID numbers, making sure our safety protocols are in place, and that we're creating a safe environment for the kids and all the volunteers that come down to Morrisville Little League. I know council had voted last couple meetings ago to support the development of Williamson Park, or at least support continued exploration of that. I want to continue going on record to say that that would damage, if not irreparably harm, the Morrisville Little League. And I think a lot of the efforts to find alternative locations for the league have sort of figured out. And did want to ask council if there were other sites that that had in mind for that. But as of right now, we're showing really strong numbers this year. Just to highlight, and I don't know if you guys can give me a screen, but I'm happy to pop up some of the numbers just to give you guys a quick look at it. Can I get that?
I don't think we can share the screen with the general public, but if you could forward that over by email to council, that would be appreciated.
Yep, I can happily do that. So I'll just speak to it at a high level. So we had 353 registered players, and we closed our registration just this past weekend. 18.4% of those players are Morrisville Borough residents. At a division by division level, it's an interesting numbers. Our younger age groups, we actually had much more significant numbers of Morrisville Borough residents. Almost 30% of our T-ball program are Morrisville Borough residents, and almost 30% of our transition program, which is ages 6, 7, and 8, are Morrisville Borough residents. Those numbers do decline as you get older in age groups. You can conjecture as to why that is exactly, but I won't do that in this forum here. But what I can say is that our T-ball numbers particularly are strong this year. It shows there's a lot of interest by younger families in participating in our league, and it's a draw to the community that we have a very successful and very valuable Morrisville Little League program here to draw. And I'd like council to continue to consider the importance of Morrisville Little League as a member of the community, as a living and breathing member of the community, not just as a historical artifact, and something that is a great value and a big utilizer of the Williamson Park. It brings a lot more than just baseball players and softball players to the park. It brings young families to the park. It brings business to the local community, and there's a lot of positive ramifications of having Morrisville Little League here. And damaging that league would be very harmful to the borough. I'll wrap with that, and if anyone has questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, sir. Terry, do we have anyone else?
I don't currently see anyone else with their hand up for public comment in Zoom.
Okay. All right, so we're going to close public comment and move on to item 6, approval of the minutes.
Ed, before we move on, can I make one comment?
Sure, sir.
While I appreciate you sending council information, you should be dealing directly with the borough manager. Council doesn't deal in the day-to-day operations, so any insurance issues, registrations should be going through Mike and not council.
I'm sorry, Justin, is that you?
Yes.
Gotcha. Candidly, and I apologize for this, to my knowledge, I didn't realize that Borough Council, until just this meeting, had a new borough manager since the tragedy of Scott passing. So I've been trying to get as much information to as many people as possible, and just cover my bases and keep lines of communication open. Happy to do that. If someone could pass me along Mike's contact information, I'm happy to work through him like I did with Scott.
All right, I'll take care of that, sir, after the meeting.
Thanks, Ted.
No problem. Is that it, Justin?
We do have one more.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure that council doesn't, deal with those
right, exactly,
insurance and stuff. You got to make sure that gets to the administration.
Yeah, in the back channels, it was sent to them immediately.
Thank you for that.
All right, there was one more person. I mean, I've officially closed it out, but I'll accept one more person if, and then we'll move on after that person.
Yeah, Mary Horrenda. Looks like her hand went up right at the end there.
Okay.
Yeah, it did. I was listening. I was, a little bit slow. 343 Crown Street, Morrisville. And I just wanted to jump into the comments of Jim O'Brien, Pensbury Racket Club, and Debbie Colgan about the park. I think that we could make a lot better use of the park. We do have good uses with the Little League, and I think a tennis program would be wonderful. But, we could have other things. I was talking to some friends, and we could have, different activities like, plant swaps we like to have, or seed swaps for gardeners. We could have community gardens in the park. We need some more tree plantings. Different organizations like EAC or the Beautification Committee or the Parks and Rec Committee could get some grants and, do more plantings and just beautify the park a little more, put in some walking paths. I just want you to think about that, I just want to dispel the myth that anybody has that the park is underutilized. If you go there anytime, during, the time that people recreate, you'll see a bunch of people there and cars in the parking lot, and this is just not when they're playing baseball and softball, but, just anytime you see families there, you see people walking the levee, you see people walking in the park, families playing in the park. Just think about utilizing the park, because it is utilized and we can make improvements. We can have more events there and, more sports, fix up the basketball courts. That would be nice. People play basketball there quite a bit. So, just give it some thought here, folks. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. We're going to move on to item 6, approval of the minutes. 6A, approval of the minutes for the Borough Council regular meeting of February 16th, 2021. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right, so, Ms. Sherlock, you were the first. Who was the second?
Nancy, I think. Mike, I don't know, whatever, whomever.
Okay, Mike will be second. Okay, thank you. All right.
I got it from here, Micah. All in favor? I think we did that. Aye. Opposed? Aye. Abstentions? Okay. Item 7, finance. Everyone got a treasurer's report. And 7B is a call for a motion to approve the bill list. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. Mike and I already talked to you about this. I don't know if you want to do it now or during the borough manager's report, but the sewer issue.
We can do it during the borough manager report just to move through the bill list.
Okay. And the only other comment I had in the bill list was one of the bills was for some frame repair to a truck. That's a pretty significant repair to do to a vehicle. So I think that council may be needing to purchase a new vehicle sooner rather than later in the future. We can look at that in budget season or talk to John later if we're going to need to replace something down the line.
Anyone else? All right, hearing none. Micah, can I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Mr. Bowers.
Yes.
Ms. Howell.
Yes.
Ms. Nickel.
Yes.
Mr. Nickel. Mr. Paul.
Yes.
Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
Ms. Sherlock.
Yes.
Mr. Yeager.
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes. Okay, motion passes to pay the bills. Moving on to Item 8, reports. 8A, mayor's report. Do we have the mayor on or no? Okay. Moving on to 8B, police chief's report. Do we have the chief there?
Yes. Yes, we do. She's always here. Good evening, council. I hope everybody's received their crime reports for the month. As you will see, we're down crime 42% year to date. The officers are doing a fabulous job out there. Let's see, we reduced our police fleet by one. I donated or gave, or whatever you want to call it, the van to the street crew to use for their water leaks. Let's see what else we got going. I need to talk about 630 Crown Street, otherwise known as the Hookah Lounge. Multiple fights there this past weekend. It's starting to escalate. They are well over their 49 people that they're allowed to have in there. I'm just afraid the violence is going to escalate there, and these fist fights are going to turn into gunfights, and it's not good. I sent a memo to the mayor, and I believe he sent it on the council. I'm looking for some guidance on whether this is going to be a police problem or whether this is going to be a code problem or a fire marshal problem, but we have to do something. The owner of the parking lot across the street is in the midst of going to start chaining the lots, and he will not let anybody park in there. So there is parking along Trenton, but I'm afraid that parking may get into the neighborhoods, which is not going to be good. So long story short, that is a business that does not work in a residential area. And it may be time for the attorneys to jump into the game a little bit and decide whether this is something that needs to go up to Doylestown, if it can, after it's gone to multiple listings over at the local level. But something, we're going into a bad state with this place, so you might want to start talking about that if you would, please. As everybody saw, we had our bike sale. We got rid of a lot of bikes. We made $457, made a lot of kids happy. And last is the Chauvin trial has gone to the jury. Major incident response team, as you know, I'm the chief of. We are available 24 hours a day, and we are monitoring it. We've had meetings with all the chiefs today. We don't know what the future is going to hold, but to let you know that the MERT team is available, and we will do everything we can to keep Bucks County safe going into the future of this. So we just got to hope for the best as of this point. All right, thank you.
I have some questions. Some of the residents have come to me about the parking on the streets, for instance, on the corners of Washington and Monroe, Washington and Green, Delaware and Penn, where the cars are parked too close to the intersection. What can the officers do about that?
Well, if any of the citizens have a complaint about the parking, they call the 9 emergency number, and we'll respond and we'll put tickets on the cars.
But when the officers are riding around, are the officers putting tickets on cars?
You can see, I can tell you how many. So this past month in March, we collected $450 in fines for illegal parking.
But when the office, so my question is, because the residents are asking, so when the officers see these cars too close to the curbs, are they doing things about it, or only if they get a complaint?
Matter of fact, I was in your ward today and I gave out 2 tickets.
Okay.
While I was on my bike. So do I say, can I tell you that every officer sees everything out there? No.
Yeah.
But if your citizens have an issue, please tell them that, I've told you this before, tell them to either call the office or
A lot of residents don't like to do that, so they tell me, so.
Well, if our officers just don't happen to be on that block at that certain point, it's very hard to ticket something if we don't know about it.
Okay, so the three complaints that I got was Washington and Moreau, the corner there, Washington and Green, and Delaware and Penn.
Okay.
Okay. They were also, some of the residents were wondering about all the Jersey plates. So there are a lot of residents, they said, in town that have Jersey tags on, and that they have been living there for quite a while. Is there anything that we can do about that?
No.
Okay. Because it's Pennsylvania law, right? That once you live in Pennsylvania 6 months to a year, you have to change over everything?
Do you know whether these people still have a residence over in New Jersey?
No.
No.
Okay.
Either would we.
Okay.
So there's nothing you can do about that.
Okay, so I'll tell them there's really nothing we can do. Okay.
But again, please ask your folks to call the non-emergency number. That's the way, because that car's only parked there for a half an hour, and we don't see it. We're not putting a ticket, obviously you can't put a ticket on it.
I know that the resident that's complaining on the Washington Street, on Moreau and Green, they said that the cars are there overnight, because when they drive in the morning to go to work, that's when they have trouble seeing the viewpoint on Washington.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll ask the officer to increase parking.
Okay, great.
Enforcement in your ward.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question. I guess this isn't really directed towards the chief. This is more directed towards the town. A couple months ago, the developers across the street from my house, that's one of the agenda items tonight with the Curtin and Hefner building, they got rates through the coals to improve a property that is basically, other than making the luxury apartments unimprovable. Who let this hookah lounge even open? Like, how did this happen? Who was sleeping at the wheel when this hookah lounge opened? And in addition to that, as far as the street parking goes, I don't think there's anything we're going to be able to do about it, because I brought the same issue up last February about the people that are parking down on Park Avenue, down on Park and Central, and basically I made a motion to do something and it died on the vine. So, I mean, that's just going to be a fact of life. People that live near the hookah lounge are going to have cars in front of their house, just like people on Park Avenue do in the summertime that live down by the dike. There's nothing we can do about it. But who let this hookah lounge? How did that happen?
You can't simply block a business because you don't like it, Scott.
You can't just tell somebody that has legitimate, honest business that they're not allowed to open unless you have specific restrictions, and good luck getting those restrictions to hold up in court unless they're airtight, because you can't just limit people's ability to make a living.
Right, but to paraphrase what the chief said before, like, that's his business just doesn't belong there.
Well, I think he means it doesn't belong there because it's become a nuisance to the neighborhood and to the department and the borough in general.
But how does it work, though, with the UNOs and parking? I mean, they should have at least 40 parking spots, and they can't rely on the shopping center, since the shopping center is not their parking. So how did that UNO go through?
But they can't, if you're just talking about the parking, they can't rely on street parking.
Right, but if you're expecting 50 people, how did the UNO go through? Because I know the Italian American Club, they couldn't stay open if they sold their parking lot across the street. So how is that allowed from the zoning?
There's ample parking for the building, for the hookah lounge. That's not the real issue. The real issue is the fights and everything that gets left behind afterwards and all that. That's where we have to figure out at this point who's going to step up and figure out what's going on in the building. I mean, is it the fire marshal that has to go in there every night and close the place down because they're over 49, which is pretty easy to figure out that there's 50 cars across the street. We've asked them to put security in there. They have, but they haven't controlled the parking lots. They're coming out drunk and rowdy and fighting, and I think it's time to come up with some kind of plan. I spoke to the owner, and he's fine. There's really nothing he wants to do at this point. He thinks everything's fine. So I don't know. Is it time to continually have zoning give citations to him every weekend? And is it possible that giving all these citations, does it ever get bounced up to Doylestown? Now, I guess that's a question for the attorneys.
Chief, can I make a comment?
Yes,
based
sir.
on what you said, I think that you, the attorney, the code enforcement officer, and the borough manager need to sit down, have a meeting, and come up with a plan. And if there's anything council needs to do to vote on to help it work, then I'm sure we'd be more than welcome to.
Exactly, Mr. Bowers.
I 100% agree with Justin. To ask council to make decisions like this on the fly is a little irresponsible, in my opinion. It should really be the administration coming to us saying there's a problem and here's how we'd like to address it, or here's your options. Which way would you like us to go with it? Not, hey guys, we have a problem. What do you want me to do about it? That doesn't seem appropriate to me.
I'm not asking you that, sir. I'm more asking you of what agency is going to be handling this. If you want the police department to handle it, we'll handle it. I mean, that's not a problem, but there's multiple people that I don't have anything to do with being, I don't run the zoning people. I don't run your lawyers. There's multiple people here. I'm just trying to figure out a cure for a situation that we have out there that isn't going to get any better. And I'm just trying to, before we get to a point that, it's, I told you so when we have bodies out there.
Right. Understood. So can Micah go ahead and address that through a meeting of the minds and bring this back to us ASAP?
Yeah, we can. Let me add something here real quick. We have been working on this. This is something we were working on with Scott before his season together. We'll have you for next week. This was actually something I was working on earlier today with zoning, with the fire marshal. So we're putting options together and developing stuff. To the chief's question about responsibilities, as he brought up, there are different legal problems here. There are zoning problems. There are fire problems. We're working together to handle those. Now we're getting into the part where we're getting into more criminal aspects than what we've seen here before. And it's really going to be a group effort to do that. And when those things occur, that's where we need to also have to help and step in. So it's really going to be a group effort or us working together. But we definitely have something that we're working on and we'll be finalizing. Well, it'll be BTU finalized with the plan before the next meeting, but when the vote on will be available next meeting if need be.
Thanks, Scott.
Mr. Parker? Ted?
Yes.
I have a question. One of the things we've been told over and over again for years in different situations like this is make sure you have the paper trail, make sure you're taking the small claims and we do have a lot of that. How long does the paper trail have to be before you can actually get it to the next level? I mean, I remember city limits down on Philadelphia Avenue. We had the same issue with them years ago. And fortunately for us, they decided to pack up and go. But how long of a paper trail do you need? I mean, it's been going on for a while. And they've been fined. They've been to court. Maybe the attorneys can answer. I don't know.
Well, keep in mind with COVID, the court's been backed up, 6 months for a ticket.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I will say, yeah, we did get backed up. So when this would have first started in November of 2019 with the enforcement, those citations didn't get to court until August of last year. So it was 9, almost 10 months before, and then everything backed up and we're finally caught up again. So that's why we're moving.
Okay, so we're on a more fast track now. Okay, very good.
We're reopening now, Nancy. Thank God.
Okay. And I just want to say something. I understand and I appreciate the chief speaking up. I understand his frustration. I think there needs to be more cooperation between the chief when there's trouble businesses that cause trouble in the neighborhood or there's the beginnings of something tragic like some kind of violence occurring with the administration, and hopefully moving forward there can be better cooperation between the department and the administration. So I appreciate the chief coming and asking, but it's being worked on, chief, and we're trying to get this to a resolution as quickly as possible before anything happens, so.
Ted, I have a question. Before, the chief said about that there's plenty of parking there. For a business, because I know in that neighborhood 15 years ago, my neighbor across the street was registering a business for their house, and they had to get 2 parking spaces. They actually made a deal with Mr. Robert at the shopping center, and he wrote a letter saying that there were two parking spaces in the bank parking lot behind the shopping center that they were free to use for a business. They would not allow that. They live on a corner, and you could park 6 cars on the corner outside of their house, but they were not allowed to register their business unless they had 2 parking spots. I realized there's a bunch of parking on Trenton Avenue and on Crown Street around the Suka Lounge, but I was under the impression that to have a business, and the same thing to Helen's point about the Italian American Club, we were going to sell that parking lot across the street. We were told we would have to limit the number of people because the street parking didn't count. So my question is, do parking spots on any given street all of a sudden now count for a business? Did something change? Or, I don't see how the Trenton Avenue and Crown Street could be considered adequate, ample, legal parking for this business. It was always a business building. It was always a commercial property, but it was a hair salon. And when it was a hair salon, they weren't cutting, 30 people's hair at one time. There was 2 or 3 chairs in there, if that. So you could park right there. I think you can even park there's a driveway there. I don't see how you could have an occupancy for 49 people and have no parking for it and rely on street parking. I didn't know that's how it worked. Is that the case?
I thought street parking was always available. I thought street parking was always considered.
Right. I mean, I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer for that right now. But
when Bob Bajer wanted to do his firearm business, when he had his FFL and he had a firearm business in the house, he was not allowed to have a business. And Bob and Nina are on the corner there. You could park 5 cars on Maple and 3 or 4 on Crown Street in front of them. They were not allowed to open their business per se. When I say open a business, unless they had had parking, and they got a letter from Mr. Robert from the shopping center saying that they had 2 spots dedicated to their business in the bank parking lot behind them. They would not let them open their business out of their house unless they had those parking spots there. And if they're going to do that to Bob and Nina, I don't understand. And it's not like Bob and Nina are going to have 50 people coming over and making a purchase at the same time.
I think the difference is how the zoning of that property is. If it's residential, it's going to be different when you want to try to open a business versus if you're sitting in a nearby strip mall or,
Right.
Yeah. So it really depends on the zoning. There's a lot of look at Napa. They're parking for 6 cars. Okay. And yet they're, right on Bridge Street. There's a lot of places. Parking's been an issue in town for a long, long time.
It's an issue in a lot of river towns.
Yes. Because they want it to be a walking town so people don't come in cars, but it doesn't work that way.
Not always. All right, we're going to move on to the manager's report.
All right, I'll be brief, and then I'll also ask John later to come to the podium. We did have an issue earlier this month about our sewer and some backups of cracked pipes. If John can come up to speak to that. And also about the framing on his vehicle. And again, that was due to stress and the plowing, but John can get into more detail. So I'll turn over my time to John.
Yeah, the sewer line in the basement had cracked right at the wall. When that happened, we got back up into the building. We figured while we did that, we cambered out to Union Street, and we found a collapse in the pipe out there. We've got to fix this regardless. It's a health issue, and it's also something that's been kind of pushed off and pushed off and pushed off. We can't push things off anymore. We have to start taking care of things today. not because now we're going to pay more, obviously, 5, 6, 7 years later. So there's more to come than what you saw in that first bill. The first bill we got in your packet, there'll be one more, maybe two more beyond that. So just so you know, I wanted you all to know we have to do it. It's no like bandage and fix something and figure something later. It has to be done now.
What do you anticipate the second and third bills to be? An estimate at all?
Not yet. I'm waiting. Actually, today I called today to get an estimate for the first portion, which is digging up the pipe and repairing that out in the parking lot. And then the other one is installing a grinder pump in the basement as opposed to the pumps that we have in there now. I'm not an expert on that. I leave that to the plumbers who know all that, and they've suggested that we do something like that. We'll see when that comes time. But first we have to get that pipe fixed. So that's probably going to be next month, within the next 2 or 3 weeks. As far as the truck, yeah, Mike is correct. The frame was cracked on the front portion of the frame. So it's not like it was cracked in the middle. So the repair that was done will work. It'll hold up. But at the end of the day, that truck is not meant to plow like a 50, like a 2500 or 30, or some of our bigger trucks. And that's, I think, what is that, 7 years or 8-year-old truck? So it's done a lot of plowing, probably more than it probably should have. But we'll just keep making it work. And but it's going to become time we're going to have to replace that vehicle or others, as you know, it takes a toll on the vehicles plowing does. So
That's a snow plow, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw that this past winter. It's pretty rackety.
yeah. So, but anyway.
Mr.
All right.
Parker?
John, I have a couple questions for
I
you.
have a question for John.
Okay.
John, the pipe that they have to replace that goes towards Union, is it in the grassy area or is it in the newly paved parking lot?
Both. It's in both. So,
Okay.
yeah, unfortunately, it's in the new paved parking lot, but it'll be restored to as good as new. We'll make sure of that. Yeah.
Is that why the parking lot kind of fell apart because of the?
No, that was for the part that had sunk out there was for an old water line that had come into the building and that had cracked and it was leaking. We had no idea that it was out there. This is more towards the curb. You can actually see a portion of the curb is sunk, but I don't anticipate it being that big of a deal to get it back to where it is today. It'll be a patch, but we'll do a couple things to make sure it looks as good as new.
All right.
John, are you looking at replacing the whole line, or can a liner be put in?
No, we can't put a liner in. You're going to have to replace the line. Once we get this portion fixed, we have to they're going to camera out all the way to Union Street. They couldn't get past this break. So I don't know if there's more breaks further out or not. We won't know until we get a camera in there. And that's what the estimate was. The next estimate coming in is to replace the line, but also camera out and make sure that there's no other breaks in that line. And we'll just work on that first, and hopefully there's nothing all the way out. We'll be fine. If there is, then we'll just have to come back with more. But we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Okay, is Gilmore involved in this at all? Are they reviewing anything?
No, there's really no need. This is just repair of the sewer line. There's no need to have engineers involved in this.
Well, I would argue there's always a need for engineers.
No, yeah, but I don't think it's an expense we need.
Especially when there's wastewater engineers that, would be able to tell you if you need the grinder pump or what size you need.
Well, I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
That's right. I'm only one of 8 up here in council, but I would recommend that you engage Gilmore for at least take a look at some things and bounce some ideas off. And either they, or even if you work with the MMA and use their sanitary engineer, they're going to have a lot of knowledge. Plumbers sometimes like to do things their way, like any contractor. Sometimes it makes them more money. Sometimes they can do it for cheaper. Sometimes it works out to the benefit of both parties. But I think having a third party involved that deals with sanitary issues may help cover the borough in the long run.
Yeah, and I apologize. I didn't realize that's what you were talking about. So yeah, we'll definitely do that.
John, what size line is it?
It's a 4-inch line.
Okay. All right, if no one else has a question for John.
I actually do. I've been walking the town a lot, and there's an awful lot of garbage on Pennsylvania Avenue. And I get that's not public works. You know, we can't have people picking up garbage. But is there a way, and Micah, maybe you know this, like contacting, maybe having like the prisoners who pick up garbage on Route 1? Can we get them in town somehow and try to help up with our garbage? Because it's really disgusting.
I don't know.
Okay, I'll look into it, but I don't know what factors have to go into it, and we might have to talk to the police department. And, you know, it's a sensitive subject, I think, bringing certain people into town to do that.
Well, I think more it's now with COVID, I think you're going to have issues too, of just bringing them out and doing stuff. I mean, we'll do the best we can. I mean, the street sweeper, we can get that out there and that'll help.
It's more like on the sidewalks and things.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really.
It comes down to the residents really taking care of property in front of their own properties and working with us to do that. So.
Yeah, so I guess we can make a statement asking the residents to pick up garbage in front of their
Absolutely.
homes.
Absolutely, if we could do that, but it's up to them.
I get that.
I actually have asked Ted if I could have a couple words when we talk about announcements tonight to talk about garbage a little bit. But so we're all on the same garbage page, that's for sure.
Yeah, is there a problem like getting garbage cans up on the dike? Because there's a lot of garbage that gets thrown there as well.
We have found, we've gone over and over this with the garbage cans on top of the levee. One of the problems you have with that is that they end up in the river. That's the biggest issue. And I can tell you that just because you put a garbage can up there doesn't mean people are going to throw garbage in it, especially up there. It's just something we found. We had cans up there before, and they were kicked into the river. So, and then we were chasing them down and trying to get them before they rolled all the way into the river. So it's hard. That's just something I don't think we should be doing.
All right, John, thanks for your time. Let's not get too far off subject. We talked about the pipes, and that's what we were talking about. So there's other issues that I will bring up in the exec session this evening, but at this time I am done with the manager's report and comments.
Okay, thank you. All right, 8D, do we have any committee reports or board reports that anybody would like to give?
Ed, I'll jump in real quick if you don't mind. I was going to give a presentation, but this meeting is going much longer than I would have anticipated. So I'm just going to give a quick overview if you don't mind. Can I take 5 minutes? Okay. So I just want to give a quick overview on the Vacant Properties Committee. I'm going to have a slideshow. I'm going to ask for Ted and Micah to make public. If you want to put it on the website, you want to just send it to council, whatever you want to do with it is fine. That gives you an overview of what this committee does and who's on the committee, how it runs, and why it's there. But what I really want to focus on just for a quick second is the blight abatement process and how it works to if there's a vacant property that's blighted in our town, what you need to do. And it's very simple. Call the borough. What happens is once we identify that there's a problem property, it goes. We send out the code enforcement or the zoning officer in some cases to inspect and investigate to see if it's actually an issue. These people get notices, they get warnings, all the way through to a point where if they don't resolve it on their own, there could, in some cases, and there has been in a few cases already, be a situation where the borough takes additional steps to take control of that property and abate the blight. So I want to throw that out there. This isn't a program that heals people's homes. The property has to be unlivable, in an unlivable condition. And I will say this, that the program itself hasn't cured as many problems as just having this program has. We have several properties in the borough that were just looked at and considered problems, that received notifications, that received that started the process of the beta to have the blight abated, and they took it upon themselves to fix their properties. And that's really the goal of this committee. Now, I bring this up and I say this because as most people know, I'm not running for re-election. I'm not interested but the reality is this is an important committee that I chair that should continue its work. Prior to me chairing this committee, there was little to no use of this committee. My knowledge for years of watching, it met twice. And what they did was they complained about a couple of nuisance properties and nothing happened. We really need the borough to manage, maintain, and keep pushing this program to hold people accountable, to hold our neighbors accountable, to hold people with rental properties that aren't managing and maintaining their properties properly for the benefit of all residents. It's not just for a select few. Everybody who lives in the borough benefits from not having blighted buildings, and that goes for everything from your neighbor's house to the Stockham building in some cases. So I just wanted to throw that out there and let everybody know that there will be a slideshow out there. It gives you some additional details on the program itself. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Okay, we're going to move into action items. 9A.
Excuse me, Mr. Parker, before you make this motion, can we please add annual audit for 2020? The year's not in there.
Annual audit.
For the 2020 annual audit, I mean, I just think the year should be in there.
All right. So, item 9A is a call for a motion to accept the 2020 annual audit as presented by the auditing firm. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
I'm sorry, who was the second?
Mike, I think.
Yeah, Mike.
Thank you.
Any discussion? All right, hearing no discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. 9B, call for a motion to adopt the amended borough fee schedule to include the fire and inspection fees. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second it to move it forward. Discussion?
I just have a quick question. There were some already included. Now, were these different? I mean, I read them, but I was just wondering how they weren't included the first time.
They're not only different, but there's added on. We do have the fire marshal here if you want to get into any other additional questions, but it was a more detailed fee schedule.
Right.
Okay, so it was more detailed. Okay, thank you.
I have a question on letter E. It says that it's a $35 minimum per inspection plus $35 per hour billed in 1/2 hour increments. I believe that should be $70 per hour billed in 1/2 hour increments.
Don, do you have that available?
Good evening, council. Which portion of the fee schedule are you talking? Is this the older portion or the new?
This,
because the new portion only addresses the commercial inspections and the permits, the operational permits. The other portion, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Part 7, letter E. I believe that's part of this part that was put in, correct?
That's part of the existing fees, yes. That wasn't the proposal for here. That was existing. We were just adding for the fire inspections, the fees associated with that.
Well, isn't that annual inspection the association with fire safety and emergency equipment inspection program?
Yes, I think what you have there, I don't have that with me, and I think what you may have there is our fees for Keystone to conduct the inspections. This fee schedule here is the way you recoup your money for the inspections.
So what was already there was already approved. We're asking to approve the addendum that the fire marshal has, and that's what is on the motion here, not what has been already approved.
Well, it would be nice if this were highlighted exactly what changed, because you said part 7, page 11, so that I looked at all that to verify, but
I believe we sent out the list of the fire marshal's addendum, and that's what is on the motion.
I had sent out actually a 4-page. It says fire inspections fee schedule, non-residential, and it goes by square footage. And then under the residential for your hotel, motel, and apartments, there's a fee schedule there.
I'm looking at that. My other comment is on page 1.
Yes.
The last you have R2 apartments 27 units or less.
Yes.
If the one before that is 26 units or less, shouldn't it be 27 units or more?
Yes, you're correct. Yeah, it should be 27 or more. Okay, that's a typo there. So that would have to be altered, changed.
And these are new inspections that we're going to be doing. Is this a new? Or are we doing these inspections currently?
These inspections will be conducted.
Okay, so we don't do them currently.
No.
And these fees will make us break even on our costs to have Keystone do this?
I'm not sure how it equates. That I can't answer. These fee schedules are based on surrounding municipalities, how they conduct their inspections and the fees that are charged. So that's what this is based on. And it's a means for the borough to recoup, some of your cost factors with regard to, the inspection process.
So we don't know how much this is going to cost and how estimated what we're going to recoup.
I don't think that there's an estimation there as far as that goes. It's going to be based on the amount of time spent in each one of the properties doing the inspection. And I can just, from what I have seen and some of the businesses that I've been in doing fire investigations and things like that, there's a lot of issues and it could be a little bit time consuming. So, and
I get that. My question is a higher level. If we're going to pay you to do these inspections and then we're going to turn around and charge fees, we should know, if we're not going to cover those fees, how much additional money we're going to need to pay and whether that affects our tax rates before we implement a program.
Well, I think that, the only thing I can say is the previous fee schedule that you had adopted was the amount that was paid out to Keystone for conducting the inspections.
So you've been doing these inspections?
No. No, these inspections have not started as of yet.
But there was a price for them
I'm sorry?
before? But there was a price for them before, but you weren't doing them, and now this is a new price?
Well, I think what happened was the Keystone submitted, my boss, Rich O'Brien, submitted the cost factor for us to conduct the inspections. And that was based on an hourly rate. So I'm proposing this fee schedule for you to potentially recoup that money. So it's based on the square footage of the property, and then if there's going to be operational permits as well.
Can I ask?
Yes.
So right now, we're approving the fee schedule. We still have the final say through the administration as to whether or not we're going to start this program.
That is correct.
They can just start it if they want.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Justin.
I said, it seems the administration will just start it if they want. They don't need our approval to do something that's on the books.
The borough manager works for council. If we're asking him at this point in time whether or not we're approving the fee schedule and to provide us with additional information before the program begins, that's what's going to happen.
Right, but we'd have to put that in a vote.
No, I don't think so, Justin. I think Ted's right. It's really at the discretion of the borough manager to disperse these things. And if we ask the borough manager to hold off on dispersing or, giving this work out to be done, I don't see why the program doesn't start. I think Ted's right.
Yeah, I think part of part of the problem is we're running into individual council members trying to direct the borough managers to do certain things. Right now, we're sitting here as a collective body. If we're asking the administration whether or not these are just to approve the additional fee schedule, the fees into the new schedule, but to hold off until some of our questions are answered, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Randy, that's something that he has to follow our directive on.
Yes, but we'd have to you'd have to have consensus from a majority council for them to follow it.
Does anybody object to that, to what I've just said, and have the administration come back to us at our next meeting in May and tell us whether or not this program will break even, and we'll give the administration permission to proceed or not?
I have no
I
issue
agree with both of you. I agree with both of you, because Ted, I think what you're saying is correct. But as far as Justin says, I think we should also know if he's implementing it. And he can do that, via a memo or just ask us, basically do we feel comfortable with, spending X amount more money? So yes,
Well, I again, I say that right now we're approving a motion to amend the fees.
Okay.
We're not authorizing the program to start. So
I'd like to make a motion to table this until next month.
all right, we have a motion to table. Do we have a second?
Second. I don't see a rush.
I don't either, sir. We have a motion we have a motion to table. We have a second for that. All in favor to table?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is tabled for further information.
All right, Justin was the first. Who was the second?
Mike.
Mike, yes.
And just an FYI, there's only one scenario in this borough that it's a break-even scenario, and that's sanitation. So if you're looking to break even, this is not the program to do.
I've also had conversations.
Go ahead, Ted.
I've also had conversations with the fire chief where, they've gone to businesses and buildings where there has been some really hairy stuff that they've encountered. So I think it's a program we need, but I just need to we all need to be assured that it's a program that's not going to cost us, more than we'd like to see it break even. So, but we need numbers and information. So, okay, who was trying to speak?
I'd like to add that there was a really bad fire on Philadelphia Avenue where the business was a mess and the firemen had difficulty going in there. And I think making sure our firemen are safe is more important than trying to make sure we break even. I think we should try, but I just think that.
I agree. I just think I think a lot of the worry is we don't want a program that, ends up costing us, far greater than we anticipated, and we have a budget issue.
We also need to know how it's going to, what's the process? Like, how do you choose it? You're going to do this alphabetically? You're going to go X amount? I mean, there's a lot to be learned first.
Point of order, I think we have a motion for a
tabling, so let's not
to
discuss
table this.
that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, Don, thanks for your time.
Sorry about that. We're going to move on to 9C. Call for a motion authorizing the borough engineer to solicit bids for the 2021 road paving program, subject to availability of grant funding. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion.
Yeah, I have a question about the wording of this. Is this left over for something else? Because this would be the first time we got a grant in a long time for roadways.
Yeah, it's.
Thank you, Justin. I had the same question. I want to know where we're going.
Yeah, I don't know if it was. I didn't have anything to do with the wording in this. I don't remember the exact wording that was last year.
Well, is there money somewhere?
Liquid fuels.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're talking liquid. Well, we should probably say it that way because it makes it.
I think we should just revise it and get rid of grant, just subject to the availability.
Available funds. Yeah.
Available funds. All right. So is that okay with the two individuals who moved it? Okay.
Yes.
My next question is, Micah, do you have a list of the roads that we're proposing?
I believe it's what is it, Hillcrest, John? I think it's Hillcrest, and depending on where the bids come in, is going to be how much we can do. So they have it broken out in certain sections depending on the bids that come in.
How are these roads chosen?
They were chosen by John, Scott, and the engineers. They went out about a year and a half ago and rated worst, and almost good. I'm kidding, but no, they went through and rated them.
Yeah, because there are some roads in the first ward that I think have to be reviewed as well. Going forward, maybe you could go through them again.
Again, John, Scott, and everyone else put a schedule for the next few years on funds and what we could manage from the liquid fuels, and here comes John.
To answer your question, we look at them every year. So every year after we're done paving, we'll go out and we'll look again and we'll reassess everything again.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Yeah, because there are some down in one. You know that, right? Yep, thank you.
Quick question, it's just Hillcrest this year? Okay.
Yes.
I mean, not that it doesn't need it, I've been down it, but.
And portions that we don't know too, right?
Right, we don't know.
Like block.
Well, we got a really good bid last year. We were able to pretty much do everything just on the liquid fuel money. So that worked out really well. Maybe we'll be that lucky again this year. All right, so motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Who opposes street paving in this town? Motion passes. All right, 9D, a call for a motion authorizing the borough engineer to solicit bids for the Melvin Avenue Basin project subject to the availability of grant funding.
So moved, and the grant funding's already there.
Yes.
Second.
Motion and a second. Michael, you can figure that one out. Discussion?
Mike, I'm going to ask you, since you know the most about this. When you said the grant funding is there, I know we had one grant. We got a second one that'll
That's right.
cover more? Okay.
Yep.
I think 122 for the second one, Mike?
Yeah, I think it was 181 and 122, something like that. So it's right around $300,000 available for it, I believe. Micah can tell me I'm crazy if he wants.
No, you're pretty on the money with money, but I would always refer back to my contact at the engineers, Wade. He has all that information at hand, but I didn't know we were going to get that deep into the conversation, but I will ask him.
I am on this call if you guys want any answers for me.
Oh, great.
Wait, I'm Wade, by the way.
Sorry, he was here. All right, thanks, Wade.
Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. 9E, a call for a motion authorizing the borough engineer to solicit bids for the Morrisville Library roof subject to the availability of grant funding. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion.
Again, we have two grants for this roof, so we'll see if we put a whole roof on or half a roof. Okay.
We'll see where the bids come in.
Question.
Anyone else?
Wade, on the roof, is the bid price dependent on, let me put that backwards. Is the type of material dependent on the bid price, whether it be slate as is or if it's something else?
Well, what we want to do in the bidding is we want to provide options and materials so we can get a couple different prices in. So we're going to absolutely put slate on there, but as well as probably a few synthetic materials. So hopefully just to have something that's awardable.
Okay. Are there any alternatives to plywood nowadays, considering the price of that is going astronomical?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure, but we actually have an architect contracted who's going to assist us in picking out all the material options. So
okay. Great.
Yeah, they should have answers on that.
Anyone else? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, motion passes.
Ted,
Nine.
before you read the next one, I was just going to recommend you don't mention the part in parentheses, because I think that's left over from a normal fire payment for the fire fund, not for the parade.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, 9F, call for a motion to approve co-sponsorship of the 2021 Memorial Day Parade with the Morrisville Fire Company and approval of an $1,800 payment as budgeted.
So moved.
A motion, can I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion. All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. 9G, call for a motion to approve the settlement agreement and stipulation with New Horizons Property Management. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion.
Yes, I have actually a question first. The parking area across the street that's considered part of the property in the building, how much of that parking belongs to them and how much is open to other residents? There are 38 parking spots in there, but right now you have a trailer, a boat, and all the people that live on that road parking behind their house. So I'm just wondering, will they be asked to leave? Or, I mean, is it first come, first serve? How's that going to work, the parking? Do you know, Randy?
I'm not sure. I mean, it's their property. I mean, to the extent they wanted, whatever they do with it. I mean, their requirement was to have enough parking for their apartment, which they have more than enough space for. I don't know what they're, we hadn't discussed with them what they're gonna, you're talking about people who are neighbors who just park on someone.
Correct.
They're parking their vehicles on someone else's property. Is that what you're
Well,
saying?
that's it. I don't know. It might not be. I mean, there are 38 spots, so it looks like it's all.
I think it's theirs. I think
it's all theirs.
Scott can correct me. I think it's theirs. Yeah,
Randy, I'm
theirs.
looking at a Google map right now, and it appears there's one neighbor that gains access to the rear of their property and parks their vehicles
through them. Yes,
on their property, on their own property through that parking lot.
Right.
That's a Pennsylvania Avenue person, Justin.
Yeah,
That's correct.
Yeah, any pre-existing right of ways, whatever, that's not extinguished with this. That goes with the land. So this has nothing to do with that.
So if they have a right of way, then it's there, and if they don't,
Yes. If they don't, they don't. But I mean, I'm not saying they won't. I don't know what they're going to do. I haven't looked at it, and I don't know the answer to that. Well, Scott, do you have the answer to that, Scott?
No, because it really wasn't something we discussed. I mean, like you said, it's their property. They're gonna abide by whatever. I believe the thought was they're gonna abide by whatever rights and things they have. I mean, they're gonna be pretty much open to, if they have extra spots and people need them, they're gonna be amenable to using them, because it's a way they can either A, support the community, or B, extra revenue.
Okay.
I will say that this doesn't have anything to do with the variance, though, or the settlement.
I understand, but it was a question. It was a good question. I just don't have an answer.
It's good to know. If we have 18 apartments, you could have 36 drivers. So
It's unlikely. It's unlikely.
It could be.
Very unlikely. They're one-bedroom apartments, so it's
You
unlikely.
could have more too. You could have less. You could have somebody that has 3 cars.
That's correct.
They're not all like you, Justin. With 17 cars.
Well, okay. Are we in discussion now, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I just want to say, I'm happy that something's happening there. I realize that we're sort of told that, the 18 was the figure that was negotiated. I am happy that they're putting washers and dryers in, but, and I am going to vote for this, but I'm kind of voting in protest because I feel that it was, I just didn't like the process. And I think that they could have come down another one. And I understand, we open ourselves to, by the variances that we've approved, we've opened ourselves to the possibility, it is the possibility of this, another location, giving those same folks the same variances. So, but I'm happy that something's going to happen there. It's a pretty building. So
I was just going to say that each property is unique and distinct on its own. There is no presidential, legally under the law, there is no presidential value.
I didn't think there was. I was going to ask.
This will not be a precedent. It will
This
not
is
be.
just
And
a stipulation and agreement.
the reason you can't go below this number is because then you're getting into two-bedroom apartments, which they want to avoid. Also, they have like $1 million invested, and it gets to a financial point where they cut out 2 units. They've added washers and dryers, gotten rid of the individual rooms, which I, by the way, thought was a really good point that the residents made and people and the zoning hearing board made. If you're going to have luxury apartments, then go all the way. Make it very luxurious. And this will be more luxurious. And it's been vacant for many years. And this council has been, I know, looking to have somebody do something useful with that property and put it on the tax rolls.
Regarding the precedent, I realized that they would have to come for a variance. My point is, they would use that as an argument, is all I'm trying to say. It's not automatic. I understand.
I'm just telling you that, yes, they can use any argument they want, but B, under the law, it's not a precedent. That's all I'm telling you. Because the law understands that there's no 2 pieces of property on earth. Well, I'll say it. Like there's no 2 snowflakes that are exactly alike. So they say, I don't know. I don't know if that's even true. But there's no 2 pieces of property that are identical. And that's the reason why it can't be used. Yeah. So don't be concerned about it. In the meantime, you have this eyesore in the middle of the town, and it's up to council whether they want to approve this or not.
I'm going to take offense to one more thing. I don't think it's an eyesore. I think it's pretty. Nobody even knows.
It's going to even be prettier when they're done. It's really a pretty building. It's a gorgeous
building. It's an eyesore
building.
inside. It's an eyesore inside.
It's a gorgeous building. I had my first will done there when we had our first child. And I remember the guy said to me, so went over my assets. He said, so I guess you're just here who's going to take care of your child if both of you should die? I go, yes. We have no assets. So, yeah, any event.
All right. Anyone else? All right. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Abstentions? Motion passed 7-1.
Who said that?
I think Bob Paul.
Hey, Bob Paul.
Is that Bob Paul said no?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. All right, moving on to 9I. Oh, I hope I wrote this down right.
How about 9H first?
I did 9H.
No, you didn't. 9H is a stipend.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There is no 9H.
Yeah, there is. It's in addition to the agenda. 9H, a motion to provide a stipend as additional compensation for additional duties in absence of a borough manager to Micah Heinz in the amount of $392.
Did we all just freeze?
Looks that way.
That's not fair.
Hey, John, we froze.
Not me. It's a screening issue. Not me. I can't do nothing about that.
Is Ted still talking, do you think? Let me call him.
John, do you have Terry's number?
Yeah. Like I said, it's definitely what do you call it? It's our internet provider. We can't see nothing. I don't know if you see anything. Yeah, but you can't see the rest of the council. You can't see the meeting.
How are you guys?
Doing all right now.
I don't think we know you.
Oh. I'm Rafael Persico. Yeah, I can't get back on. Chairman of the zoning board.
Oh, I didn't know. I'm sorry.
Much better, right?
I'm thinking resident, and I was just like,
Well, I'm
you
a
know,
resident too.
I know, but you know what I mean. I was looking like. We should be broadcasting.
We should be is not an answer.
The
Not for
people
what
that
we
are
think
in public comment in Borough Hall can hear you now.
And I believe we left off at 9H.
So 9H was not heard at Borough Hall at all. All right, we're going to go back and redo item 9H. Motion to provide a stipend as additional compensation for additional duties in absence of a borough manager to Micah Heinz in the amount of $392 per week and Virginia Cyphers in the amount of $272 per week. This stipend will be retroactive to February 16th, 2021, when council confirmed Micah Heinz as acting borough manager.
So
We have a
moved.
motion again.
We shouldn't have to do this, should we? I mean, we had a quorum of council already vote on this.
All right, then let me know how it went down.
It was not in the public meeting, though.
Listen, hold a second, hold it. Some of the council people, there was a technical glitch.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with redoing the vote.
Okay.
So that, because they hypothetically might come up with a reason that's so extraordinary that you might change your mind. So they have a right to participate. So everyone has a right. So
Which is why I read.
if we just do it over, then nobody can complain. Everyone
Okay.
has an opportunity.
I'm game.
And I think if it wasn't heard at home, though I heard it was, but if it wasn't heard at home, I'd rather the public hear this, especially since it involves an expense. So we have
Mike's first.
We have a motion. We need a first and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Second. I hadn't moved it before, but okay.
Doesn't matter.
Mike and Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
New. Okay.
All right, we have a motion and we have it moved and seconded. Discussion again.
I'll say again, thank you both for stepping up. It's been a difficult time between COVID and everything else going on, and have to deal with this. Our hearts ache for the loss to begin with, but thank you guys for stepping up and getting things done for us.
Yes. I second that. All right, we're going to do a roll call on these last two motions just to be sure that everybody is voting. So, any other discussion on? All right, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Bowers.
Yes.
Mr. Hollow.
Yes.
Mr. Nickel.
Yes.
Mr. Paul.
Yes.
Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
Ms. Sherlock.
Yes.
Mr. Yeager.
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes. Motion passes. All right, we're going to move on to item number 9I. Motion to agree to contract Dave Walkram of the Minor Center to conduct a search for borough manager not to exceed $6,000 plus travel expenses per his proposal dated March 5th, 2021. And I probably read this like 5 different times, but that's the motion. Can we have a motion in a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. And I believe Scott had, Mr. Robinson had started some. Do you want to comment again so that everybody can hear it?
Yeah, okay. I like the idea of it. As I had said before, I called a couple different borough managers, and this guy found quite a few people for one of the boroughs up by Reading or something. But with that said, we also we posted the job in a couple of other places that we got some candidates this weekend that otherwise probably wouldn't have known about it. But I'm totally open and swayable to this. I want to hear what everyone else thinks on this. I think it's a good idea. I know, Ted, I'm going to go in the future. You had said about the 3 candidates that we had got, and I was in the middle of saying this when it froze. I really like this idea. If we're going to work with the 3 that we have. I wouldn't mind tabling this until May and keep it alive till May. And definitely, if what we're doing now doesn't work, then I would vote yes for this in May. I could vote yes for tonight. I want to hear what everybody else has to say, though. It's I'm either way. It doesn't matter. I like it, but we do have 3 people that just applied. So I'll turn it over to everyone else.
If I can kind of piggyback on Scott, I would rather vote on it tonight with a caveat that after viewing or interviewing those other 3, only because I don't know. I mean, the gentleman is busy, and if we wait longer, it may be even another month after that. I don't know, but maybe Randy can tell us more.
When I spoke to him, he's ready to start work. I don't know where I lost. Did anybody hear that whole discussion about he has grandchild,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
everything is fine? He's back to work. Everyone's healthy, and he's ready to go back to work. He said that he would do a Zoom meeting with everybody, an hour and a half to 2 hours, part of the fee. It's all included. He wants to interview us and find out what you want and what you need and your experiences and what can be improved and all that sort of thing. He'll then do a very diligent search. He knows everyone and his brother and sister all over the place. He's got 1 million contacts. He can do more in a month than we can do in a year by ourselves. And I just got to say this to you. You really need a manager. You need a full-time manager, a qualified manager. It's $6,000, and it's not for me to spend your money, but it's a very small amount of money considering the amount of work this person is going to do. And because this is your chief executive officer of your borough, and will save you more than that. If they're worth 1/10 of their salt, they should save you many times that in a year. It's a very reasonable, it's a heavily subsidized number because of the deal he has with the university. Because the fair market value is way higher than this. So that's my only suggestion. I would, you're free to interview anyone you want. That doesn't stop it, but I think to delay it at this point, we've delayed it months. And like I could just tell you, there's things, the hookah lounge, there's stuff that we need executive decisions made on, and a manager has to set priorities. We're only the attorneys. We don't want to be your managers. It's not for us to be managers. It's for us to respond to what the manager and what council wants. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right. Would we like to put a date caveat in it and get the 3 interviews since we've received them? At least conduct the interviews.
No, may I speak, Mr. Parker? First of all, I don't think we should interview the 3 candidates that submitted their resumes recently, or at least not yet. I think it's essential that we hire Mr. Woglam to help us at this point. And I think we should do it now and not postpone it I think, as Randy pointed out, time is of the essence. And we've already gone a couple of months without a manager. It's even longer when you think of how long Scott was ill. And, we tried. Last month I said that I was leaning toward hiring Waglum, but then we had the 6 resumes come in, and we had 2 people who had some potential. And I thought, great, let's talk to them. I was relatively interested in both of them, but I think other members of council had good objections to each of them. And I listened to those, and I think it's important that whoever we hire, that we reach a consensus. We're not all going to agree on who maybe the number 1 pick is, but I don't think we should hire anyone where if any council member has a serious objection, I think, they should essentially have almost veto power, because I think we can't get this thing wrong. But that's why we need help. We need Mr. Waglum to bring in a lot of qualified candidates, and also to help us screen them. And I think that the idea that he's going to talk to each of the council members to get a better feel for what our needs are, I think is just a bonus on top of everything else. So I would advocate very strongly that we authorize hiring Mr. Waglum tonight. It doesn't prevent us from fielding more resumes directly ourselves. And if we see somebody great there, we can add them to the list. But I think before we have any more interviews and waste any more time on candidates who we might be okay for some reasons, but we're not sure of, they're coming from different jurisdictions, they don't have the full manager experience, we're making all kinds of compromises to bring these people in. I think we should go to Waglum and say, bring us people that will help us and that will steer us in the right direction. So that's my vote for tonight. I think we should hire Waglum and hire him now, and no caveats.
How about if we just forward those 3 resumes to Waglum and ask him to add him as part of his search?
Councilwoman, what we were going to do, if you approve this time, what we were going to do is we were going to submit all the resumes, the 1 or 3 new ones, plus the other ones, all of them, even the ones that you didn't want, to him to show what we've done. He asked me that. I said, I didn't go over. I said, we have like a dozen, 10, 12 resumes now. And we'll send it to him. Let him do the legwork. Let him do that. Otherwise, you're going to be spending night after night, and you'll be right back here because you're not going to find someone who, this borough deserves a fabulous manager. You have a tremendous borough with tremendous opportunity, and it's a really tough job, And I think you need someone top notch. You deserve that.
I also think that whoever we hire, I know we can't offer them a contract past December of this year, but whoever we hire, we kind of all 6 of us, or I'm sorry, all 8 of us need to agree that borough manager will continue in January in 2022. Because to have someone and then just have them gone in 6 months isn't a good idea either. We need stability in the borough, and we need to start moving forward with things we want done.
Right. And I think that lends to what Mr. Paul had said, that, we come to a consensus on an individual, and if the 8 of us can agree on somebody, then I'm pretty sure they'll make it past January.
If I may?
Go ahead, sir.
I want to give my 2 cents on this, and I want to thank everybody for chiming in on it. So here's kind of where I am with it. If we're going to do it, let's do it now. We shouldn't wait on it. Reason being is we need somebody, and you guys, you cannot guarantee they can go beyond December, no matter who you are and what you say. And quite honestly, we're kind of in a good spot with that, right? Because you now have a working relationship with somebody that you can make a decision with in January that you'll have 6-8 months of experience with, right? So yes. I would lean towards what we had, right? And I think I was pretty clear with what my position was. But if this council wants to make sure 100% of the people are okay with the person, I think we're going to end up right where we are right now in January, not having agreed on anyone, because there's an element to this council that is not rational. It's almost Games of Thrones like in its activity, and it gets a little petty sometimes. So that's within council that I don't think we're going to get past between now and December. Me personally, I just want somebody experienced that can do the job that everyone can look at the end of December and say, this is the right person, man or woman, or it's not, and we have to reorganize. That's your opportunity to do it. It's the reasonable, right way to do it. And by the way, it's the good way to do it, because when you have the reorganization, that's when you make those decisions. Right now, we need somebody to our solicitor's point, who is top notch, that knows the job, that can not only manage the front office, manage public works and the projects we have going on, understands the development that we're looking at, understands all the different aspects of how a borough runs. But you're not going to know that from a resume. You're not going to know that for sure from a couple of interviews. You're going to know that when they sit down in that seat and they start churning. So in my opinion, and where I am with it, if we're going to do it, yes, let's do it today and let's get it done. Let's get somebody in these doors so we could start testing them in a real life boiler room situation, because that's what the borough is, right? You're getting phone calls from angry neighbors. Everything's going haywire. You got to deal with 5,000 different things and you got to manage it, right? So we need to see how somebody handles that pressure and that anxiety level within the borough. It's not an easy job, like we've all said and we all agree to. That said, if we wait too long, we're gonna have the same problem. And if we wait for everyone to have the opinion that this is the right person, I don't think we'll ever get there, because we have personalities that just won't allow that. Because if this person likes that person, this person's automatically not going to like that person just to be that counterpoint. We have to stop doing that. And we also have to understand that that's who we are right now. And if we're going to try to get an 8-0 on this, I think we're going to be here in December, guys.
Yeah, I don't think I was looking for an 8-0. I think we were looking for somebody that, we could possibly come to an agreement on. I'm a little bit more optimistic that maybe we'll find somebody that, enough of us like. I'd like to have a better agreement than just a simple majority, but we'll have to see how that pans out. But I agree, if we're going to do this, let's do this and let's vote on it. We've got to get moving. I mean, we've got to get moving. Micah and Virginia have done an excellent job, but we need somebody who can take us to the next level, and we really need to find somebody ASAP. So, all right, any further discussion?
Yeah, Ted, I just want to chime in and say, Mike, thank you. I was against this only because I felt that we interviewed somebody that could come and hit the ground running and do a good job, but it doesn't seem to be consensus. But with what you said, I'm ready. Let's move ahead. Let's move forward and get somebody in here, because we do need it.
Yes. Anyone else? All right. Micah, roll call, please.
God bless you.
Excuse me, sorry, of course. Mr. Bowers.
Yes.
Mrs. Hollow.
Yes.
Mr. Nickel.
Yes.
Mr. Paul.
Yes.
Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
Ms. Sherlock.
Yes.
Mr. Yeager.
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes. Motion passes 8-0. All right, moving on to 10, other business. I don't have any, but. All right, hearing nothing else. Item 11, borough officials.
I have a couple things, Ted.
Go ahead, sir.
Real quick, congratulations to the Friends of Morrisville Dog Park and the Morrisville Dog Park itself for being named Best of Bucks 2021. I think it's the 4th year running. As Noel said earlier, Friends of Morrisville Dog Park originally scheduled a dog wash last month. It was rescheduled to this Sunday from 9 to 12 and 1 to 3 by appointment only. You can email them at morrisvilledogpark@yahoo.com or check out Friends of Morrisville Dog Park on Facebook. One statement I want to make to one of the residents that had an inquiry about Select Morrisville. I can tell you as a council member, I have received nothing since the last time they were in Borough Hall. There's no information coming in that you're not getting. And my thoughts on the borough manager reporting on it The borough manager, just because you pay taxes and pay his salary, he works on a million things a day, whether it be development or the park or whatnot. You get no less from him if he's not reporting that, you know, he sneezed and said, "God bless you, select Morrisville." If he's has nothing substantial to report, he doesn't report it. If he has something substantial, he'll report it. That's just how it is. And one last thing, Scott had mentioned about his parking signs, and he put up a motion and it went nowhere. And I just wanted to say that it did go somewhere. It was told to take it to policy committee and sit down, come up with a plan and a policy and bring it to council, and not just do it on a whim, and maybe it would be put into place. And that's all I have.
I have one thing, sir, if I may. I just want to remind council that the police contracts are due this year. They're due for renegotiation. I don't know if there's been any consideration to what we've done in prior years, which is putting together a small committee to work with the borough manager to be named in the future, and our solicitors to hammer that out. I just like to throw it out there so we start thinking about it, because it's getting to that timeline, and and beg a little bit to not put anyone who's a friend of a police officer on the committee that's going to be negotiating their contracts. It's a really bad idea. It puts people in an awkward situation. So knowing that we have some council members that are personal friends of some of the people that work in the police department, I would implore you to create that with people that are not directly connected and have to make decisions on the livelihood of their friends. It's a really bad idea.
May I add to Mike's, whoever that might be on there, I would hope that one of the things they could pay attention to is a particular policy that we've had. Actually, I just realized maybe I should mention it, because we have a piece of it as part of the executive session. So I think everybody knows what I'm referring to, but we have to be clear about our policies and be more specific with the wording. And there's a couple of policies in the police contract that we should reconsider and look at.
Okay.
Whoever that is.
Okay, I have a couple of things to say. Justin, I wasn't born yesterday. When that was kicked down to the policy committee, and we didn't even have a policy committee when that was kicked down to it. We created a policy committee after that. Okay, that was just something that was kicked. Mike, I don't know what you get. Mike, we didn't have a policy committee when that happened. Okay?
I'm sorry, I'm looking confused, because we've always had a policy committee, Scott. I'm sorry.
There's always been a policy
if you're seeing the expression on my face, it's because that always existed. Your excuse is null and void. You don't have a policy. Who was on the policy committee? You don't meet. Scott, you don't meet, and you don't provide any information when you did meet the one time. I'm still waiting for you to provide minutes for that meeting, sir. So and for you to sit here and scold anybody, start where the problem is, which is the actual committee. My committee still meets. Does yours? Do any of yours?
How many problems have we had on this?
Anybody,
Hold on.
Mr. Councilman, make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, sir.
How many problems have we had on this council that the recommendation was kick it down to the policy committee, besides the parking on Park Avenue?
The policy committee used to meet monthly, and we would review policies, and we would always have a policy committee meeting, even if there wasn't a need to be proactive to review things. And by the way, deal with the individuals who in our town that we live near and their complaints, and see from a policy perspective how we can make life better in the borough. That's what the policy committee does. Then it gives recommendations to the council, and the council either says yay or nay.
I know, and the COVID kind of got in the way of that a little bit.
I got you. So more excuses, sir. Go right ahead with your excuses. I'll listen to them while I'm on mute.
To your point about the police contract, I will not be a part of any of a committee for it, because I do have a couple friends that are on the department. Now, back before, during the borough manager report, we were talking about the garbage. To Helen's point, garbage is it is out of control. I've gotten several emails from neighbors. My one neighbor on Pennsylvania Avenue, one of the nicest houses in the borough, he has garbage just, all over his yard, and it blows from across the street. That is, the people live on the other side of Pennsylvania Avenue. Also, Micah, I forwarded an email to you from a resident about the a problem with getting a garbage truck down the street over on
Center
Center
Street.
Street. Did you see that, Micah, or not? Yeah, Nancy, you got that too, right? About
Yes.
that's
what I was going to talk about this evening.
Yeah.
My
I
suggestion,
wasn't-
Scott, if I can interrupt, my suggestion would be possibly having no parking on the northbound side of that street on trash pickup nights. It's just become too hard for the trucks to maneuver down the skinniest street in the borough. I mean, they sent us pictures, and that was what I was gonna bring up this evening. But this is something, I mean, normally something like that, you'd have to put it in your traffic ordinance, which would take forever, and then you'd have to advertise it and so forth. But there's got to be another way around this that we can make it much more less red tape and just get it to happen. So I would have to refer to our solicitors regarding that. But I really don't see another solution. So then, on trash pickup days, no parking on that side. And the trash for Delmore Avenue gets picked up on Central in their backyard.
Yeah,
and that's what's
because they do throw it out back. Yeah, they throw it. They go out back with it.
Right.
Back, on the.
I mean,
a lot of them park back there.
Correct.
And now, how do we go about that on no parking on
Well, that's what I'm saying. Normally, it would be through your
Thursdays.
traffic ordinance, and you'd have to make an amendment and advertise and all of that. So, I don't know if there's another way we could do it with less red tape.
Maybe the policy committee can do something, and then we'll get the garbage picked up.
I don't know. I'm referring to Randy on this one. I mean, is that something that we could do internally without having all the rigmarole with the traffic ordinance? Because that's what determines where you're parking, when you're not parking.
Right. You're talking about like restricting parking?
Pardon me?
On certain sides. You're talking about restricting parking on certain sides?
Yes, just like 2 days a week.
Yeah. Yeah, you would have to go through an ordinance amendment process.
Yes, I knew that.
Yeah, but it's not going to take a long time to do it.
Well, then I think
It's not
maybe
going
we
to
should
take
go
a
ahead.
long time, is what I'm saying. We're not going to delay it.
I think we
You
should.
jump right on it. You'll have it. Okay.
I don't know. I don't know how anybody else feels, but my conversation was going to be more about trash in general. We have a contract with Republic, but that contract works two ways, and I know that there's been some troubled issues, and Center Street definitely is one of them. But there's also parts in town where people they're very disrespectful when it comes to their trash. I mean, we have labels that they could label their recycling, which some people don't. I mean, sometimes our trash hauler has to be mind readers to find out what's the trash and what's not. So, and then like actually Mike said it and Helen said it, the trash out front, I have trash out in front of my house all the time. Less since Foosa's closed down, I have to tell you, there was always trash in front of my house. But it's my job to go pick it up. It's not my trash, but still we have to pick it up, including what's in the street. So if there was just some way to have people have a little bit more pride in their property, knowing full well, I understand it's not theirs. And as far as the contract goes, we've told the public that if they have a problem with the trash hauler, they need to call them directly. And what's happening is people are on the phone I even actually got on the phone. You're on hold for more than an hour. People don't have time to be on hold for an hour to talk to Republic to tell them about now I realize we used to have a different process, and the borough would meet with the gentleman, and he would come into the borough twice a day on trash pickup and say, were there any issues? Do we have to go somewhere? Do we miss somebody? So I don't know where that process came in now that they have to call them. I understand we're taking the burden off of our staff. So I'm not saying I have the answer, but I know that having our residents have to call Republic and be on hold for more than an hour is not the right answer.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
I mean, what you're saying seems like an operational issue with Republic. They bid their bid to get that street done. If they can't do it, it sounds like there needs to be a sit down between Micah, Randy, and possibly you and Nancy and Scott, just to sit in and listen, to make them figure out how to fix it. Because if they can't get their truck up there, then they need to send a smaller truck. They've been to that street and they need to get to it every single week.
Agreed. And they also have to, if they can't pick up that day, they have to inform the borough, which I don't think that they're doing right now. I'm not sure. So I don't know. Micah may have more information or for us on it. I don't know. But that's where we are with the trash on Center Street.
It seems like to me, before we go put in an ordinance for parking, we just sit down needed with Republic to try to resolve it. Because we do it now, you know, Randy, we have teeth in that contract that if they're not picking up, we can start taking away some good chunks of cash every week.
But I'm also asking people to be somewhat respectful of the trash that they put out. I mean, if you see these pictures, I realize when people move, there's a yard full of garbage out there. They take more than they have to on more than one occasion. So there's a little bit of both sides. I know. I'm just talking to the fact that you're saying that it doesn't seem like they're going up the street at all. If that's the case, they need to get up there. Well, one woman said they came down and took the recycling, but she thought it was the trash truck. Now, someone can enlighten me on this, but I've seen the trash truck take recycling before, so I don't really know. I know normally the recycling truck has the big, side opening.
Nancy, I think what the one person emailed said that the recycling didn't get picked up. The regular garbage got picked up, but the recycling didn't. And then they came back in the garbage truck and just threw the recycles into the regular garbage truck. I wasn't aware that there was, I saw the one picture that was emailed. There was several people on that street emailed us that it looked like there was quite a bit of trash. But the first email that we got, I think it was from Joyce. That email there, I think the tone of that one was just that, it's like she put like maybe one bag out or one small can, and they just would not come down the street. And I would assume the bottleneck is down by Palmer, by the Red Bridge, that they can't get up and around down there.
Around the corner, yeah.
And I would wager to say even if we just made that little 100-yard stretch from Center down to where the I guess it's the hillside, I guess where the canal path turns into a paved road there, like the alley the part that runs up to like Rudd and Jill's and Joe Doyle's, like that portion to Center Street, which is not even 100 yards, make that like a no parking or something, because I think that's where the truck can't make the turn.
Well, I do think it has to go back to administration, and that's why I'm bringing it up to everybody to let them know what's going on, and we have to have a conversation with Republic about it. So going back to what Justin said, I think Micah needs to, address it with them first and see where we go from there.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. Yeah, because Justin's right. Why isn't your garbage truck going down the street like every other street? That's right. What it's either they don't feel like it, or they do miss
streets. They do miss streets, and they usually go back to them when they're told. But
on Riverside,
they missed.
On Riverside, they actually, because that also is a dead-end street, they back up halfway to the street and then go collect the garbage. So they don't actually have to go through.
And then I have two more things, though. That's all I have on garbage. I'm sorry it's taken so long. I thought.
All right, well, we have just as a reminder to everybody, we have Labor Council waiting for our exec session.
I understand that.
Can we move this along?
I won't be much longer. I'm asking, under the Select LLC, it's broken down into miscellaneous and like it has two other categories, but all the attorney fees are put into miscellaneous, and I would like if we could have that separated out in their escrow account. I don't know if anybody agrees, disagrees,
Why would that matter to us? It's not our money. We're just a holding cell for it, and when they use it, we pay.
Yes, but we do get the bills, and they have to be processed somewhere, and they have to be filed into a okay. If nobody else wants it, then I'll separate them out myself. But and then very quick on May 1st, which I know Courtney was there earlier, but there's the cleanup of the preserve is on May 1st from at 10 o'clock, and their rain date is the following day. Trash bags again are provided, and that is down at the Delmore and Philadelphia Avenue. This is something they've been doing for years, same time of year. And also, I'd just like to say that there's a lot of library activities going on this summer. They're going to have a summer park program with a number of different outdoor events, which will include families and children. So just you can go to the website and see what they are. I won't list them now. There's about 6 or 7 of them. Thank you for your time. Oh, one last thing. The 225, the police directive, I guess we'll put that on next month, maybe? The towing directive?
Yeah, it came too late to.
Yes, okay, next month.
Yeah, on top of everything else, I didn't have a chance to read anything, so didn't either.
Well,
Can we ask for what was changed in that? Because it's like 15 pages and.
Well, exactly where I was going, Justin. If they could give us a cover letter that says these are the following changes, just like with the fees, it would be, you know, instead of getting both copies and having to compare side by side. That's something I guess somebody can ask the chief.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
The chief is still here if somebody wants to tell him what you need.
Did he hear the question?
Chief, did you hear the question?
That's an hour wasted on Labor Council. Going back in history, we were never quite sure whether these directives were ever approved properly. That's why we were going through each one by one. And there's also a whole new section appendix on that for towing vehicles. So us by the police department.
All right, so it's not necessarily something new. It's just want to make sure that it's happening.
The appendix is new, but that's what we've been doing for the last year is going over these more important directives to make sure they are solidified and voted on by council so they are, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about whether they are or not. That's why we were doing one at a time.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
If everyone's done, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Hey, council, if anyone still needs help scheduling a COVID vaccination, if you call my office, we can do it for you.
Thank you.
As a public service, a lot of people have been having a hard time.